women give more money to charity than, regardless of what their socioeconomic level is, than men, period. And the other pin is that we give somewhere between to roughly 4 to 5 charities. So if you actually added up what you're giving to all of those good things, then somebody in higher ed with a brain in their head would say, oh my gosh, she really is much more closely aligned to someone that we think we ought to be engaging and nurturing and finding what her real passion is and connecting her.
Did you ever think of yourself as a philanthropist? Did you ever think of yourself as giving back? Did you ever think about making a difference, making an impact, making all the things that women say they want to do, but the term financial literacy and philanthropy just don't come to mind for you? Well, today's guest is exactly who you need to hear from. Today on the show, we are joined by Hope Gallagher Ogletree, Senior Director of Development at Fordham Gabelli's School of Business and the head of the university's Women's Philanthropy Initiatives. Hope is a thoughtful, strategic leader who spent her career finding creative ways to connect donors to the heart of an institution. She's the driving force behind Fordham Women's Philanthropy Summit and the launch of its first giving circles. Both are initiatives that are not only innovative, but deeply impactful. I know because I've been a speaker and I've attended them, and they are wonderful. With more than a decade of experience just at Fordham, let alone other things that you can read about in the bio below, she's a clear talent for building lasting relationships. Hope brings both vision and heart to everything she does. Welcome, my friend, Hope Ogletree.
It is a joy and a pleasure to be with you, Monique.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. I've been wanting to do this for so long. You and I are so aligned on so many things. I almost don't know where to start, but tell us about your journey and how you got into development and philanthropy.
You know, it's really funny. You kind of bloom where you're planted sometimes. And I was thinking about, actually, there were two amazing men in my family, my father and my step-grandfather, who were both very focused on raising money for very different causes. So as a little girl, I would listen to my father beating up all of his classmates from his college to give, and didn't necessarily find that appealing. And then I had this amazing step-grandfather who raised lots of money for the war effort, World War II, and utilized the people and the connections he had to do really good things, but was incredibly humble. And a lot of that I didn't even learn about until after he died, the full extent of it. So just being in that milieu of watching people do these good things, I knew that was what I was supposed to do. However, my own beginning happened when I was badly solicited for money from my girls' day school that had remerged with its boys' school. And I'll not tell you who it is because they did such a lousy job. And the man who's calling me is beating me up about not giving money to, in essence, his school because I had never taken a class or experienced the campus once these two schools merged. And I thought, holy bananas, this is not, if you think I'm going to give you money now, you got another thing coming. And the other piece to this, which is relevant, is I had already graduated from my beloved Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts, and their endowment was smaller than this fancy day school, boys' school thing that I had gone to. And I thought, we're done. I know where my money's going. And so that was really the beginning of my being so conscious of the way someone would come at you to talk about philanthropy.
It's interesting. I had this discussion with some wealth management executives who were women, and they over and over said, and I think you and I have talked about this, the idea that women don't see themselves as philanthropists until they give something in the vicinity of 7 figures. And, whether you're giving $100 a month to, FUV to support a public radio station, or you're giving a couple thousand to your university or your private high school or whatever it is that is your cause or passion, or both, you are a philanthropist.
Precisely.
And, the wealth transfer, I think I wanna set it up a little bit by talking about the statistics that we talked about yesterday, which were how much of wealth is going to come under the auspices and control of women moving forward.
I always wanna make sure that I'm up to date because for all the right reasons, but also it's amazing how much we've increased our control over money in the last 10 years. So, 10 years ago, women in the United States, just the United States, were gonna control about 7.5 trillion with a T dollars. No small pot of change, right? Fast forward by 2030, a mere 5 years from now, American women are gonna be in charge of $34 trillion, which is why I am so passionate about financial literacy for women and also debunking this incorrect definition of philanthropy, which we can expand upon. And interestingly, yesterday I'm reading, and the next generation behind the baby boomers, those women are expected to have 47 trillion to deal with and to determine. And finally, one other 2 other quick ones. By 2048, and I hope I'm still on the planet, $124 trillion dollars will have transferred, well, the wealth transfer of which 100 trillion will be in the hands of women. So right this second, women in America control 2/3 of the wealth. That is mind-boggling to me. And so part of what I, set out to do at Fordham 10 years ago was to realize that 55% of Fordham's living alumni were alumni, AE, women. And that is a norm. Why? Because we outlive our guys mostly, and also because higher ed for the last 25 years has been graduating more women than men, irrespective of whether they try for a 50-50 split. Most of them don't. Fordham is a lot like lots and lots of other places where it's 60% women, 40% men in most entering classes. So it's critical that any institution that has women gets serious about the impact that we can make. And part of the problem with higher ed, and cut me off here, Monique, when you want me to go somewhere else. But part of the problem with higher ed is that because they've never done a deep dive into how women give or understand the motivations, they may look at your gift to Fordham and say, nice gift, blah, 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 but she's not going to be able to do $1 million trillion down the road. Well, first problem is women give more than men regardless of the socioeconomic level.
Stop, put a pin in that. Say that again. I wanna hear people.
Women give more money to charity than regardless of what their socioeconomic level is than men. Period. And the other pin is that we give somewhere between to roughly 4 to 5 charities. So if you actually added up what you're giving to all of those good things, then somebody in higher ed with a brain in their head would say, "Oh my gosh, she really is much more closely aligned to someone that we think we ought to be engaging and nurturing and finding what her real passion is and connecting her." And the other thing that I say that, kind of had this aha moment in my own right, for so many years, fundraising in higher ed and across all charities has been the template is a male template. And by that I mean you have all these levels. So you come in and you're a big wig if you give 1,000 and 2,500 and 5,000 and 10 and all that. And then in the old days, sometimes they do this still now, or they don't necessarily, then they'd list your names. And that's what I was listening to my father do, beat up those people and say, "Come on, Charlie, you can give more." Well, cut it out. It's a competitive thing that is meant to make our wonderful men, and I love my men, but get their testosterone going crazy. And it is the absolute turnoff to women. And it's what makes us wanna run the other way because we are so much more collaborative in the way we think about things. I was really blessed, actually. It was a miraculous meeting that would never have been on my radar. I met a woman whose name is Sandra Shaw Hardy, and she was speaking in all places, Norwalk, Connecticut, at one of the associations that fundraisers attend. It's AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals. It's a little lunch in the no exciting place. She was the woman, along with her business partner Martha Taylor, who came up with this wonderful list of the 6 C's, like cat, of women's giving. And when I listened to her, I thought, my gosh, she's doing all the things that I instinctively would do, but she's put them on a piece of paper. So, what are the 6 C's? Why do we do anything in life beyond also giving? We want to create something, we want to change something, we like to connect, we want to commit, we enjoy collaborating. And the most important thing women love to do, and this is not a silly thing, we love to celebrate that accomplishment. And the reason that celebration is important is that it reinforces this collaborative, people giving to the same thing, which is where giving circles comes from. So we can talk there. But if women need to celebrate their success, because it's like giving ourselves an aha moment that we're capable of doing this much bigger number than we would ever have thought we could do on our own. And then in the 21st century, they came up with 3 more words, which were control. We have better control over our money. We're developing better confidence. I don't think we're 100% there yet. And we also have more courage. I mean, so the Melinda Gates of the world, that's kind of easy when you have that kind of a pot of money to utilize. But what I wanted my Fordham women to understand, to go back to the definition of philanthropy, is that what that means is the love of humanity. And it's not just the love of humanity, it's the love of humanity, and you want to help individuals, and you also want to help society. So, it's not that you're sitting and contemplating your navel and wanting to love the world. You want to actively be involved and connected to making those changes, the creating, the changing, the connecting, all of that. And so, to me, we have the robber barons of the 1900s that were, making us all feel that if we didn't give $1 million, then we were nothing. But the real issue for philanthropy is if you're passionate about something. So, to your point exactly, you give $100 a month, and it's to this one thing that makes your heart sing. Because I want to also say these are heart conversations that we're having. It's what's changing here. It's not transactional. And that's also a lot of what men do. It's a transactional gift so they can get their name on a building. No, what women want to do is have this touch their heart. And so that's where we differ so tremendously. And so I'll finish this and then you move me where you want to. If we don't really become comfortable with this thing called money, which is actually an inanimate object that has so much emotion attached to it that we have to separate that out. And I say this, and I'm not naive about the impact of money or the lack thereof, believe me, but I say this to sort of shock people, which to me isn't very shocking, but I say it's a tool, no more, no less.
Women give a lot of meaning to money. I mean, we give a lot of meaning to a lot of things, but as a practical matter, there's two things that are happening, and in the wealth transfer environment, it's kind of dangerous. Women are feeling that they don't have it figured out. So another one of my wealth advisor friends, Sarah, said to me, my clients become my clients, but they don't come to me soon enough. They come to me once they've kind of got some stuff figured out, because somehow or another, the women feel that they need to have money figured out before they go see a financial advisor. Right. So I don't know about you, but the last time I went to the doctor, I didn't feel the need to go get a medical degree before I went to the doctor. I didn't feel the need to go get a dental degree before I went to the dentist. I didn't feel the need to go get a psychology degree to go to the shrink. I did. So why do we feel the need to figure things out more so in a realm of the word money than we do for other things in our lives? So there has been historical, and I just want to put a pin in this for the listener and the viewer. the thing that we have to remember is Cloverdale law has only been around for 50 years. We have only had 50 years of being able to purchase, have credit in our own names without a male cosigner, whether that be your husband, your father, or your brother. That is the reality of why we have not had a comfortable relationship with money. We have not been taught environmentally, oh, don't worry about it. He's got that. Oh, you don't need to worry. And remember back in the day when you were inheriting something as a woman until that point in the 19, let's just say it was 1920 or it was 1850 or it was 1790, whatever, pick a date that was before 50 years ago. If your husband died, your assets went to your son. So you could go from being rich and at the top of the food chain. And if your son decided to throw you out of the mansion that you lived in for your entire life while you raised him, he could do that. And you lived on whatever he allowed you to live on. So understand the power dynamic that money provided to men at the expense of women until 50 years ago. I give that for context because I don't think a lot of people understand that.
To me, what prevents women from getting this information is sort of stems from fear, right? Or you know,
You don't want to look stupid.
right, or it sounds so much more complicated than it actually is. I mean, and I think so what I try to do is break it down to the simplest common denominators, and I say, you know, every woman I know that runs a family budget, they gotta know they got enough food for the gas in the car and the food in the refrigerator. I mean, being a philanthropist to me is simply creating another line item in your budget, but it starts with understanding how to do a budget. So without being patronizing or condescending, that's why I pull my hair out and say financial literacy is not brain surgery. It's about making a decision that you want to deal with this elephant in the room called money and that you do not want to give it more power than it should have. And dare I say it, so part of this, the shocking definition give, and then people roll their eyes and say she's out of her mind. I say it is an inanimate object. It is a tool. It does not define your value. What defines your value for me is how you choose to use it.
So that is a perfect segue to tell me how you became the conduit of a giving circle community and initiative, and what is it doing, and how do I know how giving circles work because I'm part of yours and I'm part of several others. How does it work? What does it mean? How do you have impact? All that. Explain it for the women listening to this podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Giving Circle is not my idea. I look at those amazing women in the Midwest in the late 60s, early 70s. University of Wisconsin and Indiana University is where the whole guru center of women's philanthropy. They have a place called the Women's Philanthropy Institute. And I would have and they are wonderful and they give you their reports for free and they're there to educate you. So, to me, a giving circle is a place for women to practice their philanthropy, and either they stay and enjoy it because it's a fabulous network of like-minded women who are supporting the same thing, or and I joke at Fordham and I say to a lot of my women who they put their toe in the water and they say, okay, I'll try this thing out, Hope. And we asked them at Fordham to do it for 4 years because a lot of our giving circles are around scholarship. So I think, let me just add this little bit of tidbit. The three things that women support, none of this is brain surgery. It's such common sense, but it's like nice to absorb it a little bit. So what do we support without thinking? Education. So whether that's scholarship or whatever it takes. We support anything that has to do with women, family, children. That's number two. And number three is medical things. That was why you have the Red Cross and the Cancer Society and all that other. So those three topics are just no brainers. But if you ask us to put a name on a building or to build the, I don't know, the research lab, unless you're a bio student, that may not appeal. But making sure you're touching a human being so they get a scholarship to get through school, that resonates. So a giving circle allows you to join whatever that particular initiative is that feeds your soul and makes your heart sing. What I've done at Fordham that's different than community foundations, as an example, is I believe in inclusivity, not exclusivity. And so for some women, giving $1,000 is excluding them from participating. So at Fordham, we have a more modest approach, and we say it's really modest, I think, but it's $100 to $10,000 a year to commit to, and there's a reason for that, to commit to whatever this giving circle is. And the real difference in what we're doing at Fordham is that nobody in that circle knows what the other one's doing. And there's a reason for that too, which is if I'm the older, more established woman and I see that young, and this is also not the correct stereotype all the time, because sometimes our younger women are giving more than our older women.
Sure. It's good socioeconomic, and it's also it's what you're comfortable with, and it's all of that.
Right. But irrespective of that, if I am sitting in this circle and I see someone that I'd like to hire, and she's been able to come in because she could give maybe more modestly than I am, it's a network. So the win-win to a giving circle is you're making an impact on whatever the thing is that you love. You're doing it jointly. And the takeaway, the give to get, is that you've now broadened your own network of like thinking people that you will have some additional interaction with that we hope will be life giving.
I think I think what you've done with the summit is an exact example of bringing people together that have very similar wiring, very similar DNA. They're in, I mean, the Jesuits have it right in the sense of cura personalis. It's something bigger than yourself. It's the whole person. It's the whole human. It's not just one thing. Humans are multidimensional, and the idea of doing good doing well by doing good is very aligned with what you find at a Fordham event. And I didn't really appreciate that till a couple of years ago, because as you know, being a Gabelli graduate, I was not emotionally vested or connected to the organization until more or less I met you. And that changed, right? And the idea of going in at a modest level and just doing what you can with what you have on a graduated basis, you see potential in people. You build relationships. You're not like, oh well, if Monique's not going to give $10,000 this year, I'm not going to talk to her, or she's not going to be invited to the VIP table or whatever. That's not how you are. But I also know that you've grown, major donors from multiple digits to very many digits, and that's your claim to fame, right? So there has to be something that you can share as an example of the importance of being philanthropic at any level. What is it that you can share with the person that's listening that doesn't really think of themselves as philanthropic, but they can be or already are?
Well, I've thought about this a lot, because I think if you are someone who's gone to another institution and somebody calls you up and says, I'd love to come and talk to you about how you feel about XYZ institution, instead of doing this, you might allow them to come and not assume they're going to hit you over the head. Because the very first thing I want to hear from you, Monique, is what was your story? Where it have you given to other things? What is important to you, so that this is a genuine, to your point, a genuine conversation. And I can see that you have the ability down the road to do more should you choose to, but we have to make this meaningful to you. It's not about the fundraiser, it's get the heck out of the way and find what it is that makes you happy. So the one that I'm thinking about that maybe you and I talked about was an amazing woman who's and many of whom, like me, first generation woman in my family to go to school. I'm fortunate that I had some old boys that, went to other places, but I'm the first woman. And that's so first generation giving is very different than, been doing this for 400 years kind of nonsense. So we have to learn. And so the woman I'm thinking about runs, a bank that you and I would know really well, and a huge person in that particular situation, but her giving was really modest. And so we did this step by step. Tell me what you love. Okay, scholarship, and I can do this. Great. Do you have a little more time? Would you be willing to see what one of our advisory boards or councils are like? Okay, got a little more involved there. And then when she realized that her time was so limited that by now she's into her school again, looking at it with a different set of eyes than when she was 22, and realizing that, there are things she really would like to impact, but that particular council I had her on wasn't going to do it. And so part of this heart conversation, which is so critical, is I said to her, if life were perfect, my favorite phrase, how would you like to leave your mark on your space? What kinds of other things do you dream about? And she said, I would love to be a trustee someday. Well, that was huge. So we were able to begin that conversation, and by now we had known each other for 3 or 4 or 5 years. So, we have this trust. So to your point, it's always about trust. And I was able to say, okay, here's what the expectation is on a yearly basis. When you're ready to just consider that, let me know. She said, I'm ready. I mean, that was actually shocking to me and wonderful. So we did this. And then part of my job is to then guide her into what we would consider a 5-year pledge. So based on what we had discussed, I thought, okay, I'm not going to be gross about this. I'm going to start with the number that she told me she was comfortable with. Because again, this is it's a conversation. It's, and there are going to be men fundraisers who would do it very differently, but this is my style. But here was the joy of it. I had suggested X and she quadrupled that. Now, the reason I share that is because I think about some of those amazing stories you've heard in the news where the secretary saves her $100, it compounds, and at the end of her life, she's giving multiple $1 million to her institution. Well, in the same way, what women do is we test before we invest. Love that line, right? And once our heart is connected, and when we know what our own financial ability is, it's like, get the heck out of our way. Yeah, you are going to ask me for that. Well, I'm going to tell you, Hope, no, I really do want to be on that trustee thing, and I'm now a smarter woman because I mean, I also know how to read a room, and I've met the president, and I know all these things. I know I have to step up, and you don't have to beat me up to do it. And the reason was because we had trust. And I had, when she needed something, I did my best to be the professional that I am, but there's warmth there.
So on a similar note, what do you think I don't know if we've already answered this question exactly, but what do you think holds women back from considering themselves philanthropists?
So to finish that beginning definition of philanthropy, I think it's a scary word because the perception is exactly what you said. You have to be giving $1 million to be a philanthropist, to which I say absolutely not. And so part of that is to get women to say, you love people, you have a passion, you are a philanthropist, forget all of that nonsense, and let's get serious about what makes you happy and not this weird perception of what the rest of the world perceives is the only way you can be serious. And that's honestly, I'll finish this, that's why inclusivity is so important to me. I want everyone in the pool that wants to be in the pool to fix that problem. So that's why I say to you, my giving circles are different than other people's. I don't know if that young woman who just gave me 1,000, which was a stretch for her, 5 years from now, she may be the $50,000 woman. And if I, make assumptions, worst thing you can do in the world, as then we've lost at the very least, we've lost a pipeline of women who would be interested in doing, supporting whatever it is. So I know inclusivity, but here's the difference. There are two fancy places out there, and I won't name them, but I will tell you what in one of the women's giving circles in this fancy place, you have had to have given $100,000 in your life before you would be allowed in. I think that's absolutely horrific because what does that say to every other woman who's a graduate of that fancy place? That they're chopped liver? I don't think so. I don't think so. And there's another one out there where you have to give $1 million. I mean, this is absorbing the worst behavior of men. This competitive, I'm better than you. I mean, I'm very glad that, Ms. Gates can do what she can do, but she's also intimidating to other women in a sense who are going to sit back and say, oh my God, if I don't have all of this at my disposal, what's the point? And my point is the other critical piece. So this is my Judeo-Christian, divinity school background that's also part of me. I'm building a community. I want a community. And to your point about the good Jesuits, Cura personality, body, mind, spirit imbalance, okay. But the other piece that you said, and then you direct me to, when you give to something that you love, it's a gift you're giving yourself. And it's also, to me, the definition of what makes a life worth living, you know? So I believe, as my Bible tells me, that in giving we receive, and I receive, my joy in watching you or someone else be able to write a check to make you happy and feel like you're doing something. And in many cases, I might not be able to write that same level check, right? But I was a part of helping that happen. And that gives my life purpose. The word I was looking for was purpose. And so, most of us, all those funny examples, that you hear that, but at the end of your life, you're not going to say, I wish I spent 5 more hours at the office. But I am going to say, what are the quality of my relationships? And how did I leave this world in a better space than, and if I could not write the check myself, in my case, what have I been able to do to be a part of that?
So my next question was gonna be is what advice do you have for women? And I think, is a great umbrella for your time, money, treasure, time
Talent, treasure.
time, talent, treasures. My apologies. So yes, just to put a finer point on that for me.
Yeah. So there's actually 5 of them, but there are 4 T's now that I can remember: time, talent, treasure, testimony. So testimony, right? So yes, what I want to say, which sometimes, and this again is about guilt with women, you can do all of those. Yes, your time for sure, and that's also how you're learning about in the place that you want to spend your money in, right? The initiative you're supporting. You're bringing your talent, your background, whatever it is, and that's collaborative because not everybody in the room's the same stuff, and that's what we want. Multiple talents helping move the thing forward. And here's the truth of this: if your treasure is $5 to be able to do, then you do it because there's something really freeing to say, I'm supporting that. So to me, it is all three. It's not either or, it's all. And when you can then share it with your friends and say, I'm so excited, I'm in this giving circle, come join us, come see what we're doing. Now you're helping build the community, and there's a sense of pride in that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so another segue is what is the best career advice you personally have ever been given?
I love this one because the I think it has always been, be yourself, develop your own personal gifts and talents, Judeo-Christian stuff. Do not be envious about the guy that or the woman who has different talents. Affirm them and let them come together and make the better of the whole, right? So it's be myself and learn to be comfortable in my own skin, take responsibility for developing my talent so I can bring it to the table, and affirm those that sit there that don't look like me or don't have, that have different talents so we can get the job done.
What's the worst career advice you've ever
It's scary because, Monique, this is like deja vu all over again. When I graduated from college, we graduated into a recession that is scary as hell. And the worst and career placement and that kind of stuff in my ancient life was not what it is today. And so the advice was get a job, don't, just get a job. And so it what I've learned the hard way in my life is if I'm working from a position of fear, not good. And so even though I understand where my graduates are, and yes, I'm not naive, you have to pay your bills and you have to pay the rent. You take that time because you are worthy of it to figure out who you are. You do that deep dive and say, okay, I may not be fully actualized as the silly things go, but this is who I am. This is what I like. There's many creative ways to get there. And I wish I had not started my career with that fear, because I ended up in a small investment firm, and that was the last place I should be. The irony of and hysteria to me is that I sell a business school, right? But it was because I was so afraid that if I didn't have a job, then what was going to happen? And if I had taken a little more time and done the work, I think who knows where life would have led me.
Yeah, I mean, I said this I was asked to speak at a advertising marketing event I think it was like a month or 2 ago, and it was called "My Job is Finding a Job," and I said a very similar thing. I said, "You guys who are applying for 50 jobs a day, you are really just kind of throwing the boulder up the mountain and it's gonna land back in your head on your head. It's like you have to give the time, energy, and effort to be specific and be on track and on target. What means something to you? Are you in alignment with the company you're applying to? Do you have special skills that nobody has that you have done nothing to differentiate? Who is your personal brand? What do you stand for? All the things that we go through at the retreat, right? It's this idea of being super clear about who you are and who you're not, and who you are for and who you are not for. Because for the same thing I say to people all the time, and you've heard me say this, I'm okay with I'm not for everyone. I'm very clear that I'm not for everyone. Believe me, I'm very clear that I'm not for everyone. However, what is also clear to me that came before is that not everyone's for me either. So there's a two-way street in that we are not for everyone. And that's what makes a horse race. And that's what makes philanthropy and the right career decisions and everything else work or not work. Because if you're aligned and you're clear that this is what your values are, you're in the right place and you're going to thrive. But you're not going to thrive if you're trying to be somebody you're not.
Precisely. And to your point, we before we started talking about how difficult it is for the young people of today and this whole comparison thing on media. And I'm not trying to sound naive at all. Just stop comparing yourself. Work on you.
So what's the advice you'd give your 30-year-old self? Would that be it?
Yeah. So when I was 30, I was 5 months pregnant. I looked dumpy. I had just started graduate school, and I was in my own pity pot because I remember being 22 and thinking, by the time I'm 30, I'm really going to have it together. So my advice to my sweet self at 30 is life is long. There are many chapters. Spend your time doing things that will develop who you are, and it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay.
Love it. Do you know that 90% of the people that I ask that question of say one version or another of "You're gonna be okay, relax, just enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey." It's a long haul, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and, we are so very hard on ourselves that it's a shame in many respects. So last parting words, thoughts, sound bites for the audience relative to foundations, philanthropy, charitable giving, giving circles, any of the above. What are your last thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Well, I think I'm just going to sort of restate. First of all, you got to give yourself a little grace. Life is not perfect. You're going to have your ups and your downs, and so know that. But I think I said it before, giving to something that I love and care deeply about. It's really giving me a life of purpose, and philanthropy is a way I can do that. Whether it's my church, my synagogue, my women's club, my community foundation, it also it gives you good endorphins because you're hanging out with people who are positive and wanting to do something to make the world better. And that's just my life mantra is, my children, they would roll their eyes. It was gifts and talents, child of God. That's how we see ourselves. And if we're a child, if I'm a child of God, then I don't need to worry about how other people look at me. So I'm put on the earth to do something good. And so that's what I want you to do. And for me, the vehicle through which I can touch people's lives is to help them find their passion. And philanthropy has been the route.
Thank you. Those were words of wisdom and certainly a masterclass in philanthropy, meaning, purpose, and life. Thank you, Hope Gallagher Ogletree. That has been so much fun. For those of you who are listening to this episode, I invite you to share it. I invite you to rate it. I invite you to do something. Let us know that you're there, that you appreciated the information, and that maybe even you're going to do something about it or with it. I invite you to make it a great day. Thank you for being here. Bye, Possibility Seekers, and thank you, Hope Ogletree. Thank you so much for listening to Possibilities with Monique de Maio, where we unpack life as a female mover and shaker. If you like the show, please consider liking it, or better still, subscribing to it and leaving us a rating. It truly does help. Also, you can pick up my book, The 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love, a practical guide for women in leadership. You can find the book, other episodes of this podcast, and how to stay in touch at moniquedemaio.com. DEMAIO. I look forward to seeing you again soon. With gratitude, Monique.